Imagine going back in time when active volcanoes constantly reshaped the landscape and giant reptiles roamed the earth. You're imagining Indonesia. "17,000 islands divide two oceans, harboring hundreds of unique species, an astonishing and fragile model of biodiversity." But even as humans have been closing in on this ancient landscape, others fight daily to preserve this critical kingdom. Morning comes to one of the lungs of our planet, the island of Borneo. Its inhabitants start their daily routines as they've done for millions of years, in one of the oldest rainforests on Earth. The diversity of animal life is matched by thousands of species of plants, many still undiscovered by science. Soon, nature's chorus fills the jungle. The lead vocalists have made a big fan of activist and conservationist Shani Kalawait, whose name means gibbon in 2 languages.
There is gibbon calling. They are very loud. Most of the time you don't see them, you just listen to them.
He's been a gibbon groupie since he was 12 years old. As a teen, he would spend afternoons watching them at the zoo.
One day in the winter, I was feeling very, very sad, alone, and suddenly I felt a small hand in my back. And I looked back. It was a female, an adult female called Washo. And she took my hand and looked at me. And she was there for me. And at that time, I really needed someone. So I felt that I have to do whatever I can to help her and to help all the gibbon.
When he turned 18, he started a new chapter in his life.
My first trip in Asia was in Thailand because it was the easiest country to find and observe gibbon in the wild. The people there, because I was spending all my time watching gibbon in the forest, they start to call me gibbon, which is Chani in Thai.
Since moving into Indonesia, Shani has fully integrated with the local society, learning the language, building a family and establishing a project that inspires thousands of people. Not bad for someone who started out of almost nothing at the tender age of 19. Despite their public concerts, gibbons communicate silently within the family, mostly through body language. One of the few monogamous primates, they choose a partner and then claim a small area of forest where they build a family and spend the rest of their lives isolated from other gibbons. The best neighborhoods have the most fruit trees to simplify mealtime.
This is why they are so territorial, because they stay on the same territory all year long, so they need to protect their resources, and they don't want to share it, just because they can't afford it.
Their power ballads may scare rival gibbons away, but their main threat comes from a greater ape: humans.
It has been worse the last few years. 20 years ago, we were talking about logging, selected logging. So yes, we lose the primary forest, the forest gets degraded, but we still have forest. Now, with the palm oil industry, when a company arrives, we lose everything. They destroy everything, nothing left.
Palm oil, a key ingredient in half of the global food industry. Also used in cosmetics and biofuels. Indonesia produces more than 58% of it. Mainly on the islands of Sumatra and Borneo. For many species, including gibbons, it's a recipe for disaster.
When just small patch of forest left, most of the animals like orangutan, sun bears will be able to travel from one small island of forest to another. But if gibbons do that, after a few months they will just die, because their immune system is not made to be in contact with parasites and bacteria on the ground.
With their natural stage being constantly reduced, gibbon wild choirs risk to be silenced forever in the island of Borneo. "3,000 kilometers away from gibbon's chants, the seas of Raja Ampat are a home to a species that has only recently begun recovering from the impact of humans. These graceful creatures don't sing, they dance. The waltz of the manta rays. These gentle giants of the oceans, whose wingspans can reach 7 meters, owe their flexibility to their skeletons made of cartilage instead of bone.
Although they're a giant animal, they actually feed on some of the ocean's smallest animals, what we call plankton. And manta rays have these giant mouths and also modified gills, which they use to filter plankton out of the water.
British conservationist Sarah Lewis has spent the last decade studying these agile cousins of the sharks.
And one of the most amazing and beautiful feeding techniques that manta rays have is what we call somersault feeding. And this is where manta rays will spin backwards in a circle in order to get as much plankton into their mouths as possible. After finishing her studies in ecology and conservation,
Sarah was assigned to work with manta rays in the Maldives, and it changed her life.
One of my first connected times with a manta ray, and it was with a little juvenile that we called Dipstick. And this particular manta ray, she was really confident, and she was particularly curious of us in the water with her. And so she was swimming up to me, swimming around. I could see her looking into my eye. She didn't seem scared, and it was just such an incredible moment. And from that time, I was completely hooked on these animals, and I realized that I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life to help protect them.
While working in the Maldives, she heard about the ominous situation facing Indonesian manta rays.
Really not much was known about them here, but what we did know is that Indonesia was the world's biggest manta ray fishing nation. So it was really ground zero for manta conservation, and a place where I felt would be really, really important to come and start a project to study and protect them.
The early 1990s began seeing an increasing demand for manta ray gills, which was starting to be used in Chinese medicine. Small traditional fishing communities like Lamakera and Lamalera, where mantas have been hunted for food for hundreds of years, saw a lucrative opportunity.
So the manta fishing communities in Indonesia are relatively remote and poor communities. So when the manta gill traders came offering more money for more mantas, this was a really tempting opportunity for these fishermen. And basically this is what drove the fishing pressure to change from a small-scale subsistence fishery into a big commercial export fishery.
In the forests of Borneo, loggers also supply the illegal exotic pet markets.
Most of the time, worker of the palm oil company kills all the adult animals to catch the babies to sell them as pet for extra cash. So deforestation and the illegal pet trade is very connected.
Without the protection of a dense forest, gibbons become easy targets for poachers. Thousands live in cages all over Indonesia. Aware of this issue, in May 1998, Shani moved to Borneo, where he built a rescue centre for gibbons from scratch. He named it Kalawait.
I decided to build a small cabin in the forest, a very tiny houses from wood, and I put a sign of Kalawait on it. I sent a very positive message saying, look, Kalawait is not just an idea now, it's a site, we have the first building, and now we can start to save gibbons. And because of these very positive messages, I started to receive donations, and Kalawait started.
At the age of 19, Shani was living his teenage dream. However, he was by far the only young conservationist rushing to help the wildlife in Indonesia. Dutch wildlife paramedic Femke den Haas also heard nature's cry for help at a tender age.
I was really lucky. At my young age, I was like 16 years old. I got the chance to come to Indonesia and to work at this orangutan rehabilitation facility in Borneo, in Kalimantan. And this is where I really discovered about the beauty and the amazing wildlife in Indonesia.
In 2002, she helped establish the country's very first wildlife rescue network.
With the setting up of 6 rescue centers throughout Indonesia. Indonesia is a very large archipelago with, so many endemic species that live in all these different islands. So we had to learn a lot. It was something totally new and groundbreaking, and we felt really useful.
Through these centres, Femke could help rescue wild animals confiscated from the illegal wildlife trade. But she and her colleagues still felt powerless to prosecute wildlife crimes and animal abuse. Together, they decided to start an organisation with more teeth, the Jakarta Animal Aid Network.
We're not here only to protest and to expose what is wrong, but we are here more to find solutions and to work with the government to help to relocate animals, to find solutions for animal welfare issues.
In 2008, she received a shocking phone call.
The report really was like this. Hey, there's a dolphin dying in a swimming pool. I'm here at the football field in Jakarta, and can you come? And I was like, are you for real? A dolphin at the football field in a swimming pool?
Investigating, Femke learned the grim truth.
There was this traveling dolphin show, and they would move from city to city, capture their dolphins straight from the Java Sea. So these were wild-caught dolphins placed on trucks, airplanes, inside boxes, dry transport, only to entertain people.
Man was not only taking wildlife performers from their natural stage, but imposing an artificial one upon them.
Inside a swimming pool is unnatural. They have to live with chemicals. It's just a bare concrete swimming pool surrounded by walls. Every time they try to use their echolocation, it will bounce back at them. So it will really make them crazy.
Also known as sonar, echolocation is a key navigation natural tool for dolphins in the wild. After spending his first years growing next to his mother, it was time for this teenage male bottlenose dolphin to search for a new pod. By emitting sound waves, his sonar allows him to see further in the vast ocean or even find prey hiding under the sand. This sea worm may not be as tasty as his mum's catches, but it is already a start. While he is scavenging for food, a pod of other teenage bottlenose males swim nearby. Not wanting to be left behind, the teenage bottlenose swims to meet them and tries to introduce himself.
They are so highly intelligent, so social. Even just the way how they communicate with each other. Every dolphin has its own signature whistle, which is like our name.
To increase his chances, the young bottlenose uses his acting skills and behaves like a female. The other dolphins join him in the theatrics by mimicking mating rituals. By passing his initiation, this young male starts a new life with his new podmates, hopefully in freedom. Unfortunately, rejection also occurs in the animal world, sometimes even among the most sociable species. One of these is endemic to the rainy forests of North Sulawesi. Meet the black-crested macaque. One of the most sociable primates in the wild, this peace-loving community spends most of their day bonding with each other. But not all members are so well accepted within the troop. This young macaque is grooming himself. Not an easy task, given that he misses his right hand. But he has not much choice, given that the other members of the troop tend to leave him aside due to his handicap. From a very early age, he has learned to fend for himself. Yet this is not a birth defect, but a consequence of his survival. He chewed his own hand off after being caught in a trap.
Illegal hunts still happening, and then it is one of the biggest threats for the macaque. People who doesn't know, they still go into the forest, they set up traps. Not necessarily for the macaques, but for other animals like pigs or chicken or ground birds. But then because these macaques, they are mostly walking on the ground, so it's very easy for them to get caught by the traps.
Rainy Palahen belongs to a new generation of native Minahassan people who have forged a friendship with these animals, known locally as yaki.
I first saw the yaki around 10 years ago when my neighbor had them as pet. I thought they're very unique, and because it was the first time I saw them very close, they have such a charisma that actually make you feel the connection and compassion.
Although they look miserable now, they are patiently waiting for the upside of this downpour. Nurtured by the monsoon, the fertile lowland rainforests provide a feast of fruit for these macaques. The bounty doesn't stop there. Females outnumber the males, so the troop's alpha leader has no problem sharing them. This may explain the sense of family that extends to the whole troop.
So they live in such a big group, up to around 100. Just like human, they are very social. Grooming is not only cleaning the fleas around their body, but it's actually a social skill. It's stronger their bond and their social life.
Their empathy extends to other species. This one doesn't want to leave a dead bat.
These macaques, they are very special. They can be easily recognized by their mohawk hairstyle, and also, as you can see, they have a very cute pink heart-shaped bottom.
Non-territorial, macaques wander throughout the rainforest, scampering across the ground and climbing trees to collect fruit or to sleep in safety. Besides being playful, they're avid explorers, but curiosity doesn't kill only cats. When these macaques are caught in traps, not all hunters really care about releasing them. some may end up as pets of people like Rainy's friend.
Actually, keeping this macaque is illegal, and this is one of the threats. They're close to extinction. And it made me feel a certain connection that made me love them even more, and it made me want to do something for them.
The legal Tomohon market on the northern part of the island of Sulawesi has earned its dark reputation for the sale of bushmeat, a custom that goes back to the animist roots of the local people.
It is actually a habit that leads or misinterpreted as a culture for Minahasan people. Minahasan people mostly live next to the forest or close to the forest. That's how mostly people work as farmer, and sometimes hunt, or they get in conflict with the macaques. So eating bushmeat or yaki is not really a tradition for Minahasan people.
Among delicacies is the black-crested macaque. According to locals, its meat is not only delicious, but a symbol of prestige.
Local people in Minahasa serve yaki or other wild animal during special occasion. For example, during the Thanksgiving or during Easter or Christmas. So it has seen like a special menu because it's not always available.
And the reason why it is not always available. Over the past 40 years, the black-crested macaque population on the island has declined 80%. About 2,000 live in a protected area, but another 3,000 are still threatened by a custom that has left them on the brink of extinction. But these macaques may be seeing a story of hope on the horizon, where a local tradition was changed in order to preserve wildlife, the manta ray hunting. At the coral seas of the Raja Ampat, the manta ray population can thrive because of a constant supply of plankton channeled by the tides from both Indian and Pacific Oceans. The two flat fins at the base of her tail identifies her as a female, and the faint bulge reveals she is pregnant. How mantas mate and where they prefer to give birth are still a mystery. Solving it could save their lives.
Manta rays have incredibly slow reproductive rates. They live a long time, up to about 50 years. They don't reach sexual maturity till about 10 to 15 years old. And when they do get pregnant, they only have one pup per pregnancy, and each pregnancy is about 12 months long. This means they're extremely vulnerable to any level of fishing pressure.
Ronald Makassar begins his usual hunt. He comes from a fishing community whose tradition has been passed from generation to generation. He's been searching for something very specific, but has constantly failed. Would he have better luck today? After 40 minutes with only enough oxygen to return to the surface, he is about to quit. Suddenly, a group of mantas approach. Among them, his elusive target, a pregnant manta ray. Carefully, he approaches. He has only one chance to get it right. His harpoon hits the manta. Shaken but apparently unharmed, she swims away. Ronald has changed his family hunting tradition to become a conservationist His harpoon implanted a radio tracking device on the pregnant manta. By monitoring the animal's movements, conservationists like Sarah can not only control poaching, but also identify potential nurseries, like they did recently on a bay in Raja Ampat.
And we were able to put a tag on one of the baby manta rays in there. And the data we got back from the tags basically showed that absolutely that lagoon is a manta ray nursery. So because of this incredible data that we got back about the baby manta rays in Wayag Lagoon, we were able to work with the government to put stricter regulations to protect the lagoon to ensure that those baby manta rays and their habitat are protected forever.
Shani Kalawait has also been protecting habitats by building reserves in Borneo and Sumatra, where gibbons rescued from the illegal pet trade are released. Part of these rescues involve persuading people to surrender their pets voluntarily. Still, authorities often have to step in. The rescued gibbons are taken to one of the centres run by the Kalawait Project to be rehabilitated. But releasing them into the wild is not that simple. Gibbons can breed any time of the year. They usually have only one infant at a time. The family raises the baby until it's at least 7 years old. Then it may split from the parents and look for a mate to start a new family. In the jungle, a single gibbon can be easily attacked by a couple or family, so it's essential for an individual to find its mate. At the Kalawait Centre, Shani and his colleagues play matchmaker.
So far so good, but we have to be careful because in every gibbon pair you have a dominant. So we need to identify who is the dominant. For now, looks to be the male, Breno, because he's always in the top of the enclosure. If both animals want to be the dominant, they can kill each other.
If Cupid succeeds, the pair will start a family and be released on a reserve. Femke had a harder time finding a happy ending for the dolphins at the travelling circus.
We immediately took action by coming back the next day with banners and doing a protest. So we found out more and more about this dolphin traveling show and where the dolphins were captured.
The dolphins were captured in the area of the Java Sea, south of the Karimanjawa Islands, close to a natural reserve where they would be protected.
The circus was actually fooling the government in a way, because they would state that the dolphins were rescued and that they needed their help after they were captured by the fishermen. He would pay like $400 for a dolphin, which it was big money for the fishermen.
In the black market, this $400 investment can easily multiply to 10,000 only in Indonesia alone. Femke and her colleagues documented the harsh conditions the circus animals were kept in. All proofs were sent to the local government.
We've collected all the data, and then the government said, okay, let's work together. You know, we are a small, dedicated team of people. We're a very small organization, so I needed to find help.
This is how, in 2010, the Jakarta Animal Aid Network joined forces with American activist Rick O'Barry. With nearly 60 years of organising protests against the hunting and captivity of dolphins all over the world, O'Barry is the man to call.
So we built like this amazing sea pen in the middle of the sea, right there in Central Java, able to rehabilitate these dolphins.
In northern Sulawesi, a different rescue mission developed. Rainy Palahen was struggling against her people's traditions, trying to save the macaques, known locally as yaki.
I actually never ate the macaque or also other wild animal, thank goodness to my mom. But my dad, he told me that he ate them. Also my auntie and some family from my dad, I think from my age range, like my cousin, they also expressed that they don't eat them.
Confronting the strong sense of identity at the root of the problem, a local organisation, Selamatkan Yaki, launched a campaign to promote the black-crested macaques as a regional symbol. Rainy is one of their main activists.
It was actually not long ago, on my early 20s, when I was in a camp where Selamatkan Yaki had a talk. It was the first time for me to find out that the macaque is endemic to North Sulawesi, but also facing extinction. I was amazed by this program and I wanted to help out more. So I volunteered myself to join their talks, to be interpreter, and around 1 year later, I was part of the team.
They bring their message to the epicenter of the problem, the local markets.
We engage with local communities, from the government, from the local people, from the students, all around North Sulawesi. We educate them, we pass the information about the yaki, and then we ask them to join our effort to spread the message how important to conserve the yaki.
When dealing with such deeply rooted traditions, Rainy and her colleagues tread very carefully.
We are using a special message. You have to protect them and you have to stop eating them or petting them or buying them from the market.
7 years in, they're seeing results. Numbers indicate there's hope for the black-crested macaques.
There are more people from local communities talking about how important to protect this species. People are proud to have this yaki as one of the icons of North Sulawesi. And through our survey in the market, there are less people selling the macaque.
Back in Borneo, Shani Kalawait takes a similar approach to keep the gibbon's chants echoing in the jungle. To speak for those who can't, he started Radio Kalawait, broadcasting songs of hope.
Good morning Kalimantan, gimana kabarnya? Ketemu lagi dengan Shani dalam acara Good Morning Kalimantan. Selama 2 jam sampai jam 9 pagi kita akan bersama seperti biasa. I understood that if I fight alone in the forest, I will not make a big difference. And I need people to understand that and to support me. So the idea was to create a radio station, not just shows in an existing radio station, but my own radio station, Kalawait Radio, to be sexy enough with good music, funny shows, to make everyone wanted to listen to it and spread the message about conservation.
Thanks to Radio Kalawait, Shani has been able to spread the gospel of the gibbons far and wide.
I'm not just a French crazy guy working alone to save gibbon in Indonesia. I have a team with me, I have more than 80 people working with me, but also we have thousands of listeners who are ready to protect us when the situation gets tricky with the government.
Shani also speaks out against deforestation, which doesn't make him a rock star with the authorities.
And I remember one time when the police came at the radio to confiscate the transmitter, and we asked the listener to come to the radio station. And the police, who came at the office and at the studio in a very arrogant way, when they saw 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 listeners coming to the radio station, they understood that they were in trouble, and they leave us alone.
His listeners can't always help. Over the years, Shani has had his houseboat stolen, was beaten in front of his children, and his wife and staff were threatened with knives. But it only hardened his resolve.
And I really believe if you are a conservation activist and don't have enemies at all in Indonesia, it's simple. It's because you are doing nothing.
Femke Den Haas has had her share of intimidation when the circus owners realized she wasn't clowning around.
And they would use intimidation. They destroyed our animal clinic overnight, like they broke the windows. They even came to my house.
But commitment was greater than her fear. As long as there's money to be made through poaching and circuses, conservationists will face obstacles. Yet Sarah Lewis and her colleagues managed to use the profit motive in their favour. They conducted a study on touristic manta ray watching.
So what my colleagues found in that study is that the estimated tourism value of a single manta ray over its lifetime can be as much as $1 million. When you compare that to the estimated fisheries value of a single manta, which is only $500, it makes total sense for a country like Indonesia to protect their manta rays as a living asset. We were able to provide this crucial information to the Indonesian government. And then in 2014, the government announced full protection for both species of manta across all of Indonesia. This was a huge conservation success and basically meant that Indonesia is now the world's biggest manta ray sanctuary.
Although an important milestone, it didn't entirely fix the problem. A manta hunting ban threatened the local fishing communities.
So following the manta protection law in 2014, the next step for us was to actually go work on the front lines with these fishing communities to help shift them away from the now illegal and unsustainable manta hunting to more sustainable alternative livelihoods that made sure they had a sustainable future and the manta rays were protected.
The project enlisted fishermen in the preservation efforts by paying them to snap underwater pictures of mantas or to tag them.
Every single manta ray has a unique pattern of spots on their bellies that doesn't change over their lifetime. So we can basically use this to identify individuals, kind of like a human fingerprint. So by photographing as many manta bellies as possible, we're able to catalogue them, and then this information helps us to better understand many things about manta populations. And it also helps us to monitor the health of the populations over time.
Involving the community in manta ray conservation brought results.
I'm pleased to say that after a few years of working together with these communities, we were able to actually reduce the manta hunting by about 97%.
Working with local communities has also brought a ray of hope to other conservation programs. In North Sulawesi, conflict with humans contributes to the declining black-crested macaque population.
In some areas in North Sulawesi, the conflict between macaque and human is still happening. It is mostly from the farmer that have their farm pretty close to the forest. When the fruit is rare in the forest, the macaque can come down and destroy the farm. So they have been considered as pests.
You can't save a species without saving their habitat, their critical kingdom now under attack. Rainey Palahen and her colleagues teach farmers to preserve and improve macaque habitats by growing part of their crops within the forest rather than cutting and clearing the land.
It is called the sustainable livelihood approaches. So has become the alternative for them. We have built greenhouse and we train them permaculture, and it has been progressing very well.
In Borneo, Shani knows that he needs to stop deforestation if he wants to keep the gibbon singing. He collects donations to purchase biodiverse parcels of forest from local owners before they sell them to the palm oil companies.
We buy the land just to have the legitimacy to say, okay, no more logging, no more hunting, but the local people get access to the forest and they can still collect the rubber, the rattan and the fruits. So local people get the same income as they sold the land to the palm oil industry, but they still have access to their land.
Rescued animals can be released on these lands and live side by side with humans.
Today we are able to protect more than 1,300 hectares, and we protect it on a daily basis with a patrol using horses, but also from the sky using paramotors.
The Kalawait project runs 3 reserves in Borneo and 1 in Sumatra. Biodiversity extends beyond gibbons, who serve as an umbrella species to protect dozens of other threatened ones.
We have sunbears like this small guy called Chopper, but also we have crocs, macaques. If we do nothing to save these animals, because they are also like gibbon, victims of the deforestation, they will just die. So even if I'm not an expert, we have to improvise.
After a 10-year struggle, Femke added another chapter to her story of hope. In February 2020, the Indonesian government finally shut down the travelling circus. She won that battle, but the war goes on.
This mafia guy who was running this traveling dolphin show, he was the one supplying other facilities of dolphins that he captured. The hotel in Lovina in Bali had purchased the dolphins from him.
The dolphins were kept in very poor conditions for the sheer entertainment of the hotel guests. After one of these dolphins died, authorities took a bold position. Femke and her organisation were trusted with the rehabilitation of the rescued dolphins, but years of captivity took its toll on the animals.
They had a lot of small scars and wounds all over their body because of the very sharp ceramics of the swimming pool. It was also seeing the dolphins sick mentally. There was one dolphin especially, his name was Dewa. He would throw himself on the side of the swimming pool. He was bleeding all over, and he would keep doing this to himself. It was as if he was trying to ease his pain with putting more pain on himself.
The dolphin recovered from his mental torment, but couldn't survive the physical injuries. The others have been recovering well. A story of hope for captive dolphins everywhere. Thanks to people like Shani, Rainy, Femke and Sarah, endangered species can have the chance for a brighter future. But they can't do it alone.
The most important thing that people can do to help is to not visit captive dolphins ever. But that one-time experience, by buying that one-time ticket, that means lifelong imprisonment for the dolphins. So don't buy a ticket to a dolphin show, ever.
There is still so much beauty left on this planet, and nature has an incredible ability to recover. And we've seen that firsthand here in Indonesia with some of these amazing conservation success stories.
I hope our program can really inspire so many other conservation programs around the world that it's actually working. So don't lose your hope that together we can have a better future.
If I have the opportunity to save one gibbon, I just save it. I'm not thinking about the opportunity for this animal to one day come back to the forest and look at all the probability. I just save it. And it's what we need. We have to stop all the big speeches to take action. What we need is active conservation.
Awareness is the most powerful weapon against environmental destruction. Before you can solve a problem, you have to know it exists in the first place. Then practical solutions can be found to rescue these critical kingdoms.